Welcome to another deep dive book review at Shoulders of Giants. We're diving into William B. Irvine's A Guide to the Good Life, the ancient art of Stoic joy.
And this book, it really gets right to it, doesn't it? Tackles that huge question for you. What's your grand goal in living?
Exactly. Not just, the day-to-day stuff, but the big picture. What's the point?
Because, as Irvine points out, we often chase things, promotions, money, stuff, thinking that's the goal.
Right, but those are things in life. Are they the point of life itself? Irvine says maybe not and suggests looking back.
Yeah, looking back to ancient philosophy, unlike a lot of modern philosophy that can be pretty academic, these ancient schools were different.
Oh, so?
Well, think about the Cynics, the Cyrenaics, Epicureans, and the Stoics. Their whole purpose was to provide a practical philosophy of life, a roadmap.
A guide to actually living well. Okay, that makes sense.
Precisely. So our mission here is to unpack what Irvine pulls from Stoicism in his book.
The key ideas, the techniques, see what this ancient wisdom might offer you today.
Let's get into it. So, Stoicism starts with Zeno of Citium. He taught out in public in Athens at a place called the Stoa Poikile.
The painted porch. Right. Hence the name, Stoic.
Yep. And originally the philosophy had like three main parts: logic, physics, and ethics.
Irvine uses that great analogy. Logic is the fence around the field. Physics is the soil.
But ethics is the crop. That's the payoff, the most important part.
And the later Roman Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they really zeroed in on that, didn't they?
Absolutely. They were much less focused on the logic and physics, the theoretical underpinnings.
Marcus Aurelius even seemed kind of glad he didn't get too bogged down in all that.
All right. He just wanted the practical stuff, the art of living, and that's what Irvine focuses on.
So according to Irvine's reading of these Roman Stoics, what are the main goals of practicing Stoicism?
He boils it down to two key things. First, virtue.
Okay, but we need to be careful with that word, right? It doesn't mean what we usually think today.
Exactly. Forget the sort of prim and proper, maybe Victorian idea of virtue. For the Stoics, it meant excellence as a human being.
Excellence? How so?
Living in accordance with nature. And since humans are rational and social creatures, that means using your reason well and fulfilling your social duties.
So being a good parent, a good citizen, thinking clearly, that's virtue.
That's the core of it. Acting excellently in your specific roles and capacities. It's quite active.
Okay, got it. And the second goal?
Tranquility.
Yeah.
And this is probably the one that really resonates with people today.
Tranquility sounds peaceful, but not, emotionless.
Definitely not emotionless, not a zombie state.
Mm-hmm.
Irvine describes it as the absence of negative emotions. The really draining ones like chronic anger, grief, anxiety, fear.
Mm.
And crucially, it's also the presence of positive emotions, especially a kind of deep, stable joy or contentment.
So it's about managing the bad stuff and cultivating the good stuff inside.
That's a great way to put it. And that focus on finding inner peace regardless of external chaos, well, you can see why that's appealing now.
Absolutely. Okay, so goals. Virtue, understood as excellence, and tranquility, understood as this calm joy. How does the book say you actually achieve these?
Right, because the goals are nice, but you need a method. And Irvine lays out some really practical Stoic techniques.
Let's dive into those. Where do we start?
A big one is about revisiting what we chase. The Stoics pointed out that we humans are kind of insatiable. We always want more.
Yeah. The new car, the bigger house. It never quite satisfies for long, does it?
Exactly. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. You get something you desired, you feel good for a bit, then you adapt, take it for granted.
And start wanting the next thing. Irvine mentions lottery winners, right? How they often end up no happier.
Yeah, it's a classic example. You adapt to the wealth, set new desires, and you're back to feeling dissatisfied. It's a treadmill.
So how do the Stoics suggest we fight this innate tendency?
With a technique that sounds, well, maybe a bit odd at first. It's called negative visualization.
Negative visualization. Okay, that does sound a little downbeat.
It can seem that way.
Yeah.
It involves consciously, deliberately thinking about losing things you value.
Like what?
Like your possessions, maybe your health or abilities, even contemplating the loss of loved ones.
Wow. Okay. Epictetus actually advised thinking about your child's mortality while kissing them goodnight.
He did. And Marcus Aurelius quotes that approvingly. It sounds harsh, maybe even morbid to our ears.
So what's the point? Just to make yourself miserable now?
No, quite the opposite, actually. It's an antidote to taking things for granted, to that hedonic adaptation.
How does that work?
By imagining loss, you vividly appreciate what you have right now. It injects gratitude back into your daily experience. It wakes you up to the value of things you normally overlook.
Okay. So it increases present joy by contrasting it with potential absence?
Exactly. And there's a second benefit. It prepares you mentally. If loss does occur, and eventually it will, because life involves loss, you're less likely to be completely shattered.
Does that mean you don't grieve?
Of course you grieve. But Irvine argues the grief might be different. Less tinged with regret, perhaps. Less of the, if only I'd appreciated them more when I had the chance.
Because you did appreciate them consciously. You valued the time.
Right. There's a consolation in knowing you cherished what you had. It connects to accepting impermanence, too. Everything changes, everything passes. Recognizing that makes the present richer.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Counterintuitive, but powerful. Okay, what's another key technique?
Another absolute cornerstone, especially from Epictetus, is the dichotomy of control.
Dichotomy. 2 parts.
Basically, yes. The idea is that some things in life are up to us, and some things are not up to us.
What falls into each category?
Up to us are primarily our inner states. Our judgments, opinions, desires, our intentions, our efforts, things internal to our own mind and will.
Okay. And what's not up to us?
Pretty much everything external. Our body, health, to a large extent, possessions, reputation, what other people do or think, political events, the weather, the past, the future outcome of our actions.
Irvine mentions a slight expansion, right? A trichotomy. Things we have some control over.
Yeah, like winning a tennis match. You control your training, your effort, your strategy. Those are up to you. But you don't fully control the opponent's skill, the referee's calls, a lucky bounce. So the outcome isn't fully up to you.
Okay, so why is making this distinction so critical for tranquility?
Because, think about it, where does most of our frustration, anger, and anxiety come from?
Trying to control things we can't. Getting upset when things outside our control don't go our way.
Exactly. If you pin your happiness, your peace of mind, on getting that promotion or on someone liking you or on never getting sick, you're setting yourself up for misery. You're making your tranquility dependent on things fundamentally outside your control.
You're giving away your power, in a sense.
Precisely. But if you shift your focus, if you place your goals and desires only on what is up to you, acting virtuously, making good judgments, putting in your best effort,
then external events can't really touch your inner peace.
That's the idea. You gain an incredible sense of freedom and resilience. External stuff still happens, good and bad, but it doesn't dictate your well-being. Your tranquility comes from within, from your own choices and responses.
This also connects to being fatalistic about the past and present.
Right. Once something has happened or is happening right now, it's no longer up to you to change the fact that it happened. Worrying about it, railing against it, is wasted effort. It just causes pain. Accept it and focus on your response, which is up to you.
Powerful. Okay, moving inward. What about self-awareness?
Crucial. The Stoics were big on self-awareness and reflection, not just drifting through life, but observing yourselves.
Like Seneca's bedtime routine?
Yeah, his famous practice. Before sleep, review the day. What fault did I overcome? What good did I do? Where did I fall short? How can I improve tomorrow? It's like keeping a moral scorecard.
And Epictetus talked about being a participant and a spectator.
Right, watching yourself as you go through life. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, is constantly doing this, analyzing his motives, checking if he's guided by reason or by ego or emotion.
So this isn't navel-gazing, it's active self-monitoring to apply the principles.
Exactly. How can you improve if you don't know where you're going wrong? Am I getting upset about something outside my control? Am I taking things for granted? Am I acting according to my values? You need that awareness.
Makes sense. Now, what about the one that always seems a bit hardcore? Voluntary discomfort.
Ah, yes. Voluntary discomfort or self-denial. This one definitely raises eyebrows sometimes.
It sounds like self-punishment. Why would you deliberately make yourself uncomfortable?
The goal isn't suffering for its own sake. It's about building resilience and self-discipline. It's about preventing yourself from becoming coddled, as Irvine puts it.
Coddled, meaning?
Meaning overly sensitive to minor discomforts. Easily upset if things aren't just right. If you never experience any hardship, even minor, you become soft. Then when real difficulties hit, you're unprepared.
So it's like training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seneca advised sometimes living as if you were poor, eating simple food, wearing basic clothes. Muthonius Rufus advocated enduring cold or heat.
Irvine gives modern examples too, right? Like tough exercise or learning something difficult.
Yeah, or even just wearing slightly less comfortable shoes occasionally. It hardens you psychologically. It teaches you that you can handle discomfort, which builds confidence.
And there's a pleasure in that.
Seneca certainly thought so. There's a satisfaction in mastering yourself, in overcoming your own aversion to discomfort or laziness. Irvine talks about it like a contest against your weaker self.
Okay, I can see the logic there. It's about strengthening your inner resources. What about dealing with other people? That's a huge source of lost tranquility for many.
Oh, absolutely. Insults, criticism, difficult colleagues. The Stoics had strategies. First, if someone insults you, ask, is it true? If it is, well, it's a fact. Why get upset about a fact? Maybe it's useful feedback.
Okay, and if it's not true?
Then it's just noise, isn't it? Why let a falsehood disturb your peace? Also, consider the source. Is the person insulting you wise and virtuous? Often they're acting out of their own flaws, maybe like a child. Does their opinion really matter that much?
So, develop some indifference to what others think, because their opinions aren't up to you anyway.
Precisely. That's key. Seeking praise or fearing criticism puts you at their mercy. The Stoics aimed for inner validation, based on their own reason and virtue.
What about anger, if someone really pushes your buttons?
Anger, for the Stoics, was basically poison. Anti-joy. It achieves nothing good and harms you more than whatever caused it. Seneca wrote a whole treatise on it.
So don't retaliate.
Definitely not. That just escalates things and destroys your own peace. Irvine suggests using humor, maybe seeing the absurdity in the situation, like watching an absurdist play.
And if you do slip up and get angry?
Apologize quickly. It restores your own composure and stops you from stewing in guilt. Oh, and they also advised being careful who you associate with.
Why is that?
Because values and vices can be contagious. Spending too much time with people who are constantly negative or greedy or dishonest, it can rub off on you.
Interesting. The book also touches on relationships and, sex.
Briefly, yes. The Stoics generally advocated a degree of sexual reserve. Not necessarily prudishness, but an awareness that chasing pleasure, especially intense physical pleasure, could easily disrupt tranquility and lead to complications. Marcus Aurelius famously tried to view it quite clinically.
But they weren't against relationships.
Not at all. They saw marriage, for instance, as a potentially virtuous and valuable partnership, built on respect and shared goals.
Yeah.
Very different from, say, the Cynics.
Speaking of differences, what about wealth? How did Stoics view money? Were they supposed to be poor?
Not necessarily poor like the Cynics demanded. They weren't against wealth, but they didn't pursue it as a primary goal. Because true needs are simple and easily met. Chasing luxuries takes huge effort, distracts from virtue, and can actually weaken your character, make you dependent.
But Irvine points out kind of paradox, right? The prosperity paradox.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because Stoics value discipline, reason, diligence, fulfilling their duties. These qualities can actually lead to success and wealth, even if that wasn't the main goal.
So Seneca was advisor to the Emperor Nero, incredibly wealthy. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor. Epictetus, though starting as a slave, ran a successful school.
Exactly. So if wealth did come their way, the Stoic approach was enjoy it reasonably, use it well, perhaps for good causes, but crucially, don't cling to it.
Be prepared to lose it without losing your tranquility.
Right. Practice poverty mentally, maybe even physically sometimes, so you know you'll be okay without it.
Yeah.
Your contentment isn't dependent on your bank balance. Very different from how people often react to getting or losing wealth today.
Okay, this all sounds, well, it sounds like a lot of work. Constant vigilance, self-discipline.
Irvine addresses that directly. He says, yes, it takes effort, it takes willpower. But he argues the effort involved in not having a philosophy of life, in just drifting, constantly battling dissatisfaction, anxiety, reacting emotionally to everything. That effort over a lifetime is arguably far, far greater.
Having a framework simplifies things, gives you direction.
That's the idea. It helps you know what's worth striving for and what's not. It provides tools to navigate difficulties.
What about the common critique that Stoicism is just grim, cold, unfeeling, suppressing emotions?
Yeah, that's a persistent misunderstanding. Irvine really pushes back on this. The goal is joy, remember, deep appreciation. It's not about suppressing feeling, it's about transforming destructive emotions into constructive ones or into indifference where appropriate.
He contrasts it with modern ideas about, say, grief counseling or venting.
Right. He points to historical examples, like the resilience shown by parents after the Aberfan mining disaster in Wales, suggesting that the modern way isn't necessarily the only or the best way to cope. Maybe that older stiff upper lip, which had Stoic echoes, had its own kind of strength.
And historically, these weren't weak people. Many Stoics faced exile, persecution, even death for their principles.
Absolutely. Seneca, Epictetus, Musonius, Rufus were exiled. Cato the Younger, Epictetus, Boreas, executed for opposing tyrants. This philosophy clearly forged incredible strength of character.
So why did it decline after Marcus Aurelius, and why is it having a comeback now?
Good question. Maybe misunderstandings piled up. Other philosophies and religions gained prominence. But Irvine's argument for its modern relevance is compelling.
Which is?
That the psychological techniques work, regardless of whether you buy into the ancient Stoic physics or theology. It's like aspirin people used willow bark for centuries before science understood why it worked.
The why might change, but the effect is real.
Exactly. These techniques, negative visualization, dichotomy of control, self-awareness, they directly address aspects of our evolved psychology, like insatiability and anxiety triggers that make modern life surprisingly miserable for many, despite our material comforts.
So it's a practical toolkit for modern minds.
That's how Irvine presents it. Though he also admits it might not be for everyone. Some people might be naturally more stoic, others might find it a real struggle. He found it suited him better than, say, Zen Buddhism.
So if someone listening is curious, how does Irvine suggest starting? You don't have to become a full-blown sage overnight.
Definitely not. He advises stealth stoicism at first.
Stealth stoicism?
Yeah, maybe don't announce it to everyone to avoid potential mockery or misunderstanding. Just start practicing internally. Pick one technique.
Like negative visualization. Or maybe focusing on the dichotomy of control.
Both are great starting points. Try consciously appreciating something small today by imagining its absence. Or, when you feel frustrated, ask yourself, is this thing I'm upset about actually up to me? Internalizing your goals, focusing on your effort, not just the outcome, is another powerful one.
Irvine also mentions some unexpected side effects of practicing.
He does. Like becoming an insult connoisseur.
Meaning he started enjoying insults.
Sort of. He started seeing them as opportunities, as tests to practice his indifference, almost looking forward to them.
Got different.
And that contest against laziness or comfort-seeking, he found that exercising self-control started to become satisfying in itself. And his desire for consumer goods just naturally faded.
And maybe the most surprising, actually wishing for challenges.
Yeah, he compares it to a trained firefighter who, having honed their skills, almost wants a fire to test them. After practicing Stoicism, part of you might paradoxically hope for difficulties to apply your newfound resilience. He felt this during a health scare himself.
But the book really emphasizes the value of this for the inevitable challenges, right? Especially later in life.
Hugely.
Right.
Old age, illness, facing mortality.
Yeah.
These are the ultimate tests where Stoicism truly shows its power. Irvine shares some really moving personal stories.
Helping his mother after her stroke.
Yes, using Stoic ideas, internalizing goals for her therapy, focusing on what she could still do, appreciating small things intensely.
Like the ice cube.
That moment with the ice cube. After being denied water, the sheer joy she found in that simple sensation. It was a perfect, spontaneous example of Stoic appreciation, born from deprivation. Something she'd taken for granted her whole life suddenly became a source of profound delight.
And seeing that and encountering others facing old age really drove home the need to prepare himself.
Absolutely. It wasn't just theory anymore. He saw firsthand how these principles could make the hardest parts of life more bearable, maybe even meaningful. Seneca even argued old age could be delightful if approached correctly.
So what was Irvine's personal outcome after adopting this philosophy? Did he become a perfect Stoic sage?
No, he's clear about that. Perfect tranquility is probably unattainable. But did he gain substantial tranquility? Yes. Did he significantly reduce negative emotions like anger and anxiety? Yes.
Did he increase his appreciation for everyday life?
Dramatically, he says. Reduced his dissatisfaction, felt more resilient. He found a coherent way to live.
And he believes these tools will be vital as he faces his own aging process.
Indispensable, is how he puts it. Useful now, but truly essential for navigating the final chapters of life.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Irvine's book, it really does offer a compelling case for dusting off this ancient wisdom.
It does. It takes these potentially abstract philosophical ideas and makes them incredibly practical, relevant to the anxieties and dissatisfaction so many of us feel today. It gives you concrete things to do.
And it leaves you, the listener, with a pretty powerful question to ponder, doesn't it?
It really does. Irvine points out that across history, across cultures, so many wise thinkers seem to converge on this idea that inner states like tranquility, contentment, virtue, these are more valuable goals than the external prizes most people chase: fame, fortune, fleeting pleasures.
So the provocative thought is this. Could it be that the majority of people, as the book suggests, are potentially misliving? Not because they're bad people, but because they haven't consciously chosen their ultimate goal in life or haven't adopted a coherent philosophy to guide them there.
What does that realization mean for you? Something to think about?
That's all for today's video. If you think this topic helped you or found it interesting, feel free to investigate further and read the book. Hopefully, you can take something you learned and apply it to your own life. If so, share it in a comment below. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.